All right, everyone, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. Got the American Express lineup builder video here for you. Going to be touching on the top values, a first look build for you guys, cash kind of single entry type stuff, going over the fades, and then we're going to apply all that knowledge into the 9 to 5 lineup builder. Okay, looking at 20 entry max and 150 entry max. Going to be a good video for you guys. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so just starting out with like a single entry type of lineup, and there are two kind of paths that you go about today or this week. Really just be easy, no look type of click thing. John Rahm's one of the top players in the field, and Patrick Cantlay are one of the top players in the field. From there, I do think Aaron Baddeley, if you guys watch my videos, you know I think he's going to be a strong play. You also know that I've been on Andrew Putnam a ton. These four players just make a lot of sense, kind of given their price tag, given their outlook for the tournament. Aaron Baddeley, just given his price tag at 6.6, is looking like a very strong price point play. We can even see 13 out of his past 15 tournaments have been made cuts. Obviously, that 7th place finish was huge for us last week, and the T6 was also awesome. Just been on him a ton, going to continue to roster him. That is what I always do, okay? From there, we have really wherever we want to go. So I think David Lipsky, maybe not as much of a cash play, but given his price point, we can certainly see that he is one of the most mispriced players this week, okay? Out of his last 3 or 4 starts, he's had 2 top 10 finishes. He also had a top 20 place finish at this tournament last year, one of the best stat fits in the field. It's tough really not to like him, especially given that price tag. And then from there, it doesn't really matter who we plug and play. And this is a tournament that has 3 rounds. Okay, so really you would want to shoot for upside. Scott Pierce you could go with. Tyson Alexander's fine. No, those are all fine plays. Eric Cole you could roll with. There's just so many decent plays. On the bottom end here, guys, it doesn't matter too much because the whole point is that it's kind of like a no-cut event. Obviously, no-cut events, what are we trying to do? We're trying to studs and duds it because we know the studs that we're going to be on are going to give us the best likelihood of a top 5 finish. That's basically what your approach should be this week as well. And maybe you don't even want to go Andrew Putnam. You're like, okay, yes, I know he's a great play, but I don't want to play him for whatever reason. I just want to go name value at the top end. Well, let's try to do that. Let's see. I don't know. Can we go Scotty? Probably not. I wouldn't want to do this because these aren't good plays. So probably drop down a little bit from Scotty, but in theory, we should be getting some elite plays on the top end. And then with it being 3 rounds, you are capturing some upside there. As long as one of those players, if 2 of them make the cut, you're sitting pretty. I would change a little bit. So let's just talk about which value plays you could potentially go with this week, and I'll be getting into the 9 to 5 lineup builder. So looking at the top values, what I'm looking at are going to be players below 7K. So starting out with Sam Ryder, he is someone that, has been a little bit hit or miss this season, but he has been someone that, on an easier scoring track was able to get a T8 finish. I'm kind of hanging my hat on that. Decent play overall. Ranks out as someone that should be right around a made cut. Not someone you love, but in a week like this where fluky stuff happens, maybe you chase him. Austin here, he's someone that had a 12th place finish last week, kind of decently popping. We can see the made cut, 7 out of 22, a decent value price point play. Joseph Bramlett you could roll with, someone that's made 9 out of 11 cuts. Now, you're not expecting much from him, but at the same time, is a player that can get hot. Obviously, I already mentioned Aaron Baddeley. Aaron Baddeley, a very probably the best value play. I mean, he is the best value play. It's pretty easy to see that. Just at some point, either this is the new Aaron Baddeley that we're seeing for the season, which would be awesome, or he's going to kind of regress back to the player that he has been for a while. Although, I don't know. I typically like to hammer these price tags because for some reason or another, I think it's world rankings, players like Aaron Baddeley, like Andrew Putnam, they are just slow to see their prices increase when they're playing some elite golf. So is a play that makes sense. Ryan Armour has 2 top 20 finishes and 2 missed cuts here in the last 4 years. He's coming off of an event in which he made a bogey on 17 and then couldn't birdie on 18 to make the cut. Kind of a choke job there. It looked pretty safe for a made cut for a majority of the tournament, honestly. So, if he had made that, that'd been 4 straight made cuts in a row. The fact of the matter is he has been playing some really great golf, really besides the Shriners, pretty good golf over the last few events. And that was his first event back, so kind of expect him to be a little bit sharper. Given the nature of the event, at 6.6, we could most likely be getting a, let's just say, top 25 finish if he makes the cut, which obviously we would like. Ben Martin, a decent play. Made the cut in his past 2 events, 10 out of 14. Decent play. Tyson Alexander is going to be someone no one's going to be on, but he had a 2nd place finish at the Houston Open, has made 2 cuts since then, had a 32nd place finish at the Sony Open. He is looking like a pretty good value play. Someone that you could easily just end up on, like a punt play. And then also Eric Cole, 4 straight made cuts. Not someone you love, could be someone you play. Corn Ferry Tour Championship, T3, struggled for a little bit there, but I like to look at these golfers that were shooting under par still, because that's a sign of at least playing good golf. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tournaments in a row in which he's been able to shoot under par, which is obviously highly encouraging. So those are all value plays that you could use maybe in a studs and duds build. That's going to be up to you guys. I want to show you guys real quick the ownership leverage for this week, maybe to make some lineup choices, and then we're going to be getting into the lineup builder. All right, so getting to the ownership leverage for this week, it is no shock that Xander Schauffele is popping up as the best leverage rank play, because what is this tool measuring? It's measuring the data behind a player being a good player or not, pretty much, and then comparing it against players around their price point and the likelihood of them doing well. Okay, so Xander Schauffele is an elite play. We know that data-wise, he's an elite play. The reason why people are not on him is because of that injury. They're concerned about his injury. So it makes sense that he's low owned for one, but because he's low owned, it makes sense that he's the top rated leverage rank play on the slate, because if it weren't for the injury, he would be an elite play. And obviously the data isn't factoring in any sort of injury. It's just maybe a little bit of the withdrawal from last week. But other than that, that's all we got. So that is what it's measuring. From there, someone like Cam Davis popping up. Cam Davis is, pretty low owned compared to how he's projected to play. And I probably would say he's lower owned because of the players around his price point range. You got Andrew Putnam, he's a really good play. Brian Harmon, a little bit higher price, really good play. JT Poston, lower price. Salik Tagala, lower priced. Those are all plays that you could end up on. So it makes sense why Cam Davis is someone that people are kind of just glancing over, especially given the fact that, he is 8.8 and some of the other plays are a little bit cheaper. But looking at it, we got Tony Finau popping up. Tony Finau is really coming in, checking all the boxes. And he is someone that, honestly, if he goes out and wins, it wouldn't be shocking. So why are Tony Finau, Scottie Scheffler, and Sungjae Im ranking out as really good leverage plays? Well, if you look at it, everyone is ending up on Jon Rahm, Patrick Cantlay, okay? And this is a week in which, yes, these guys are all great plays. Like, it's very close to how good of plays they are. So because of that, if someone like Jon Rahm is getting a lot more ownership than someone like Scottie Scheffler, where they are very close plays projection-wise, it makes sense that someone like Scottie Scheffler, given the ownerships, is ranking out really well leverage-wise. Same thing for Tony Finau. Sungjae Im, we can tell people are not as gung-ho about him this week as they were last week. Still a great play, guys. I mean, yeah, sure, he struggled last week. He struggled at the Sony Open the previous year as well. I'm not worried about Sungjae Im this week. I think that's a great leverage spot. Aaron Wise, I don't know if I agree with that. Andrew Putnam, really strong play. One thing I want to look at, leverage gained. Okay, so this is telling us like where they should be kind of projected owned. And the difference between the leverage rank and the leverage gained is if you were to play them, this is how much leverage you would gain on the field, because that is kind of how they're valued. This is what they should be projected ownership wise, pretty much. But the leverage rank is grading the play based off of the ownership of the players around their price point tier. Okay, so that's why someone like Finau, who's an awesome play, $600 cheaper, ranks out as a better leverage rank play than Jon Rahm because he's 6% less projected ownership, although you can gain some nice leverage on the field as a whole. Let's look at the leverage rank the opposite way. Which players are players that you do not need to go out of your way to play that are a little bit overowned? And typically speaking, guys, this is how it always works out. Like golfers that are low owned for a reason. They're just not good plays. So obviously if they're not good plays, they're not going to rank out as great leverage plays. That's just how it goes. Taylor Moore, Ricky Fowler, Grayson Sigg, Justin Suh, and that hurts my heart. If you guys know me at all, you know that I like Justin Suh, and maybe not because it's been a while, but each year around this time, I'm talking him up. He was the Korn Ferry Tour Player of the Year, so it does make sense. This event is in California as well, so it does make sense, but that ownership is starting to get a little bit too high for someone that does look like a GPP risk. From there, let's move this up a little bit higher. Let's go to like 8 or maybe even 9, 10. Let's go to 10. So as we can see, there's not that many players that are double-digit projected ownership. The ownerships are spread out, and that's why the leverage tag is kind of saying all these players are under-owned, and this might be something I need to adjust. Because we are seeing the ownership be very spread out. There aren't any players that are like too high owned these days. So because of that, like everyone's coming in slightly under owned. So I might need to change the formula of the leverage tag a little bit. But we can see Tom Hoge really the only player that's coming in slightly over owned, and that's not too bad. Typically speaking, it's like yellow, obviously, hesitate, yield. Red kind of means avoid. So really the only player that this is saying we should avoid is going to be Tom Hoge. Tom Hoge is being valued as a top 15 finisher, and I would assume he's projected to finish more or less top 25 or so. So you're not losing that much, but not a great play. Tom Kim, kind of same thing. And this is compared to the players around him. Like they're safer, just a good upside plays right around his price point. tag. Adam had one I love. I get it, but it's starting to get a little bit too high. Taylor Montgomery as well. GPP only play, getting 12% projected ownership. I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, there are safer, just as good players around his price point here. So let's go ahead and now apply all this knowledge and let's get into the lineup builder. So the first thing that I want to do with the 9-to-5 lineup builder is going to be to increase the projections of the players I say as core play, high exposure plays, and whatnot. Okay, that is what I'm focusing on. I don't really want to take out any players from the player pool. I want the data to be able to work off of what I'm trying to tell it to do, but I don't want to like minimize the player pool too much. You could. This is a week in which there's a ton of great plays. You can make your player pool like 35 plays and be fine with it. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and increase the projections of the players I want to be on. So this is part of the 9-to-5 write-up. If you guys want to, it's available for 9-to-5 members. It is a huge deep dive each and every week. So for example, though, like core plays, I want to bump up Rahm, Cantlay, Harman, and Putnam's projections probably 5 points because I want to be on them the most. High exposure, 4 plays. I'm going to bump up, or 4 points. I'm going to bump them up 4 points because then I want to be on them the next best. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and operate with right now. So John Rahm, instead of 112, I'm going to go 117 just to ensure that I'm getting him in all my builds or the majority of builds that I want. Same thing with Patrick Cantlay. Going to bump him up 5 points. So 114, Brian Harman, 109, Andrew Putnam. Probably don't need to, but just to ensure that we get him in there 112. Okay. So that's going to ensure that those players are being pulled into a majority of our builds. And so typically speaking, I like to do my max exposure settings to about 40%. That's really up for you guys. Obviously, it depends on the tournament and whatnot. You could do 3 unique players per build as well. I don't really care about total ownership or salary, especially with how like spread out the ownership is. Like the total ownership doesn't matter. If you want to do 90%, you can. That's typically like the max you want to use for total ownership is 90%. But golf ownership isn't like as good as NBA, for sure NBA. I mean, chalk and NBA hits all the time. And NFL, like it's the worst among those sports. That's why the leverage rank tool, like you gain an edge by using those players each week. The players that rank out leverage wise are finishing better than the players that are the highest owned each week. Now it's a little bit different because obviously some players are higher owned because of their price point, but typically speaking, ownership isn't a big deal. And it is in one-off situations for sure, like leverage rank wise, but like looking at it as a percent whole, not as big of a deal. So if you want to prioritize ownership leverage, what you would do is you'd bump up the ownerships of, let's say, Xander. Like, oh yeah, I agree with that leverage. I want to bump up his projections because I want him into more builds because that leverage rank, I like it. I agree with it. That's what you do. Or Tony Finau. Yeah, I agree with that. Third best leverage rank play. Let's bump up his projection. That's the way you go about attacking that. But getting into this 40%, let's just run it. And we should be getting 40% Harman, 40% Cantlay, 40% Rahm, and 40% Putnam. We're going to do 20 builds right now. And so here we go. We can see it. We're going to look at the statistics here. Okay, so we're not getting like too low or salary. That's good. 20 lines, that's good. Average ownership, 53%. See, like you typically don't have to worry about ownership, especially when it's this spread out because it's never going to be too high chalk of a build. That's just PGA DFS. So looking at the players here, 40% Patrick Cantlay, 40% Putnam, 40% Hadwin, which I don't mind. Putnam or Polzin, I don't mind. Harman's in there, and 40% John Rahm. So we did get all the 40% in there. Now we're going to apply some knowledge that we learned at the start of this video. Tom Hoge, I don't want to be on because why? He is one of the few over-owned players this week. So I'm going to drop down his projection. I'm going to be underweight on Tom Hoge. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the best way is to go to show usage, click on the timestamp, and then it has the ownerships for those players. So players that you don't want to be on, you can set their max exposure or you could click off of them. Like I don't really ever want to go full fade on anyone. So let's do 5. Like they're popping up for a reason. Let the data do the work, Will Gordon, like he's okay. Fine GPP play. David Lipsky, I do like. You guys know that. 5 for Smalley, 5 for Grillo. Pendrith, I don't want to be on 5. I'm just doing 5 because when I do 150 entry max contest, I don't want to be full fading these players. Sleep Takal, he's fine. I would say 10% is probably right. Let's do 10 for him. And now let's try to run this again. So as we can see, we have a much better exposure to these players. And honestly, this is looking pretty good for a 20 entry type of build. Get David Lipsky, one of the best price point plays. And outright, guys, if the number's still hanging out there, he was like 130 to 150 to 1 on some markets. Probably the best long shot bet we're going to get this season. Okay. It's kind of like, it reminds me a lot of Luke List last year, where Luke List was like 75 to 1, but he was a top 20 play. And I hardly bet the number. Like it's just not the way to go. It makes sense with Lipsky this week. He could easily miss the cut, but it is the correct move, just given how he's ranking out and course history wise and whatnot. But looking at Thomas Dietrich, one of the better GPP plays, Wyndham Clark, we have more of a fair and balanced approach. I would say probably a little bit too much Denny McCarthy, maybe a little bit too much of Seabez there. Ricky Fowler I'm actually fine with, but probably 10% him. So let's go ahead and set this up for us to do 150 entry max. And I just want to show you guys this first before we do that. So I typically like to do this 3 unique players. So let's do that real quick. It does change up kind of the construction of lineups a little bit more. So instead of being on 15% Bazoon Hout, it's down to 10. Just like that. That's kind of just how it works out. So one thing we could do, like if you are trying to do a fair and balanced approach with your builds, the one thing you could do, and I don't know if I want to do this just yet, but when a lineup includes Jon Rahm, who we already know we're going to be on a decent amount, you would do, I want at least, and then you do 2 of these players, and then who are the values that we want to be on? Well, let's go back to the start of the video. Aaron Baddeley, remember that. Ryan Armour, Tyson Alexander, Eric Cole, Sam Ryder, Ben Martin. Like there's a decent amount of players, remember? So you would click save on that, and you could do it for Patrick Cantlay. You could do it all for all the studs. If you're trying to do studs and duds, you do it for the studs as well. So just real quickly, I want to show you guys how this would work out. Generate it again. And so the one thing we would have to do with that, because we are saying that we want values in there, the lineup optimizer is built to give you the best projected fantasy point lineups. Okay. And because you're saying, I want those values in there, it might not pull in Jon Rahm because you're setting the rule that says, when a lineup includes Jon Rahm, I want at least 2 of these players. But by doing that, you are not putting out your best lineups pretty much. So a way that you could go about kind of telling it would be you would lock Jon Rahm then into at least, what is our max exposure? 40%. You would lock Jon Rahm into at least 40% lineups, click generate, and then it should work. All right, so we see Jon Rahm. Let's click on him. He's highlighted. We see Aaron Baddeley. We see Sam Ryder, Jon Rahm, Aaron Baddeley, Ben Martin. And one thing I'd probably want to do is bump up Baddeley's and Ryan Armour's projections, because those are the 2 players that I want to be on the most value price point tier wise, so that'd be another way to go about doing that. And so let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to bump them up a decent amount, 75, but maybe 20% max exposure. Don't want him 40%. He is a good play, but don't go crazy with it. And then same thing with Ryan Armour. Like Ryan Armour's chances to make the cut are pretty great considering his price tag. So let's also go with like 74.5, whatever. That works. So if we generate again, we should get a little bit more Ryan Armour and Aaron Baddeley. Yeah, we can see 30% Aaron Baddeley and 15% Ryan Armour. That is pretty much working out how I wanted. Maybe a little bit less Sam Ryder, although I think he is an okay GPP play. One player I'd probably want more of would be Tyson Alexander, so I'd have to bump up his projection. Yeah, he said at 56. That's not good. Not that much data on him. He's not expected to do too well. Bump him up. But now, if we want to run 150 entry max contest, like I feel like we have this set up the way we want. So let me just double check, make sure there's no one being pulled in that I don't want much of. So I went to show usage again, and we clicked on the last one that we did. So we could potentially say, all right, JT Polzin I like, Patrick Rogers I like, Thomas Dietrich, David Lipsky, Adam Hadwin, all those players like I like, but maybe dropping down to 40%. That'll be something we do after we do the 150 lineups. So let's go ahead and do that. And you are doing 150 lineups, so this will take a little bit to load. Typically, like, let's just say 10 seconds to like a minute. Typically. All right, so it just got done running them. And so let's take a peek. And boom, it's working out the way we wanted. So when you do 20 lineups, there's only so much it can do, Now we're doing it this way. And so we're getting the proper exposures to players that we want. 40% Rahm, 40% Harmon, 40% Putnam, 40% Cantlay. And obviously, guys, if we're doing 40% on a player, we are increasing the risk. Like if they miss the cut, if they struggle, that's going to hurt. Okay, this is very much a long-term strategy in which you are trying to get the correct combination of players correct maybe twice every 3 months. If that makes sense. Like the core plays are going to be pretty solid plays. The high exposure plays are going to be very solid plays, each and every week. It's very hard to get 6 for 6 across the cut line. That's kind of the main goal. But you're also trying to capture the upside if that happens. So really, it's honestly like you are shooting for really 2 really solid weeks out of 3 months that, give you that potential to take down a GPP. And for a lot of people, that whole roller coaster of GPPs, 150 entry max contest is not for them, which is perfectly fine. Play cash contests, hit 70% of the time, 65% of the time, make that profit. That is perfectly fine. So looking at, yes, we have this pretty much set up, I would say almost ideally. Maybe would want more Baddeley than Armour. Maybe a little bit more Finau because he was someone that was ranking out really well leverage wise. Probably more Scotty. But for the most part, this is working out well. There are some things I can tinker with, and I probably will before lineup block. So what I could do, download it, upload these lineups, do my entries, and then come tomorrow before lineup lock, if I need to, well, I could easily go ahead and adjust these and just switch it out. But that is all for this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. Give a like and subscribe. Hopefully this was able to help you guys with your lineup process, make some lineup decisions for you, make some better lineup decisions. Let's have a good week, guys. And as always, let's keep cashing. Oh, if you guys want access to these tools, I do set up the membership at $10 a month. That is not for me. That is for you guys. I'm trying to give, you know, the fantasy golf community the best tools at the best value. So take advantage of that. All right. Thanks for watching. My voice is gone. Wow. That hasn't happened in a while. Let's have a good slate. As always, let's keep cashing.